So, we are recording this on a special day.
Yes, very special day. It's April 8th.
April 8th of 2024.
2024,
What's the significance of that?
Well, if you don't know, then you guys didn't get to see the solar eclipse.
The future's so bright.
You need to wear shades.
I gotta wear shades. Like father.
Like son.
Just two regular guys that love to distro hop.
Not too technical or even bleeding edge.
But functional and necessary for getting things done.
In Linux and open source.
Join us as we learn together. On the Father
and Son podcast.
Yes, today was the solar eclipse. So much fun. It was nice to get out and look at that. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started.
Something that's really kind of cool about the solar eclipse is that you only get to see the total eclipse in certain spots as it's going through its path.
So this one's going up through Texas, probably closer to Austin,
Dallas.
That area. And then onto the edge of, Canada and stuff, right? When it's coming up. Yeah. So, that's pretty cool.
And whenever it comes again, next 7 to 14 years-ish.
20 years? I don't know.
It'll be moved a little bit more. So, where we're stationed, we got about 80%.
Yeah, 80 or 90%. It's pretty nice. It was good. Of course, our friend in Austin, he could see the stars.
Yeah.
It's so dark, and coyotes and stuff like that were actually howling. It's actually affecting the animals. So that's pretty cool. And he sent me a picture of that, and it looks really, really nice.
Another thing that's pretty cool about that is my brother, where he is, he got to see
in Fort Worth.
Yeah, in Fort Worth, whatever.
Roughly
he got to see the full total eclipse too.
Which would be my son, by the way. So
my brother, his son, if you can't figure that out.
So that'd be like father, like son, like son. Anyway, maybe one of these times we'll have him on there. He's a gamer. He likes to game and stuff. But we don't get to see him as much as we want to. Anyway. But hey, we'll be down to Austin.
Yeah.
Coming up this weekend. The solar eclipse couldn't wait just a few more days. But we're going to go to LinuxFest.
Yeah, Texas LinuxFest.
Texas LinuxFest. So it's going to be I don't know if they call it Texas LinuxFest. I think it's what they call it. But we're going to go down there and check out all the things that's going on in Linux in the Lone Star State, because that's what we call home. It's a little bit of a ways for us. We're not, Texas is big, so it takes you a while to get across. But
anywhere
across it. So if you're a salesman coming from the east and you want to come and say, hey, I'm in Houston, I'm just going to go ahead and dive over to the Panhandle. Yeah, that's a long drive.
Long drive. We got plateaus, hills, canyons, you name it. Pretty much every type of terrain's here in Texas.
Absolutely. So, yeah. Anyway, hopefully some of you guys will be there. I don't know if I'll have the stuff up by LinuxFest, but I hope, if we do, we'll hopefully see you guys some up there at the Texas LinuxFest. So, welcome to episode 6 of season 1 of the Like Father, Like Son Linux Review podcast. I am Like Father.
And I am Like Son.
I am James.
I am James.
Awesome. All right, Jamie, what have you been doing for this last week in Linux or open source or general IT?
Oh, well, my job. But I really need to stop doing that joke.
Yeah.
It's going to get old real fast. But actually, as of late, I decided I wanted to, heaven forbid, distro hop again. And,
oh, no, you shouldn't do that.
Never. Play around with...
Now, this is a distro hop beyond the normal distro hopping we're doing to do the Linux review.
Yeah.
So you distro hopped.
Yes.
Okay.
So I distro hopped into, tried to load up Qubes OS.
Okay.
And this one's a interesting type of Linux because it's using a lot of virtualization technology to protect itself and protect you overall.
Right.
So it's containerizing a lot of everything. which you're seeing more and more frequently now. But back, I think Qubes OS was pretty much doing it first, actually. But anyway, at the time when I wanted to actually play around with it, my computer did not support the virtualization technology that it needed in order to run. Well, now I have one. So I went ahead and was like, let me try it out. Why not? Throw it up on Ventoy, boot up,
Right.
get to the install page. Hey, it's all loaded. Yay. And it says, your hardware is not supported. It's like, say, what?
Oh, so it went, motherboard wasn't supported, or?
No, it just said the hardware wasn't supported. I was like, I know I had the virtualization technology. So I booted into the system BIOS,
Right.
on my ASRock's motherboard.
Right.
And was going...
Rocks.
Yes, it does, actually. Went through all the plethora of menu options and found there's the virtualization Intel VT-D, and it was set to disabled. Well, no wonder Qubes OS is going to tell me it can't be supported. It can't find the virtualization technology because it's disabled by the motherboard.
Right.
Okay. Re-enable it. Restart, after saving, get back into Qubes OS. It's like, gets past that, I get to set up my username, choose where I want to install it, and everything. And then it says, I can't find my software repository.
Uh-oh.
I was like, wait. It should be on the ISO, right? It wasn't able to load it from the ISO. I was like, okay, well, it offers a net version. I was like, okay, well, let me try finding their mirrorless or repository URL and load it up that way. Didn't work either. So I'll look online, I figure out, it's like, all right, it's giving me this particular area that it says it can't find the repository. Then to find out, that usually means that there's a network issue.
Oh, okay.
I was like, okay, so if I wanted to install this without the network, I guess I wouldn't be able to, or is it just something different? But, so I haven't quite figured that out yet. That's going to take some more time to look into. I'm also thinking maybe it's a Ventoy issue, because Ventoy doesn't always support all of the...
All right, so when you're actually installing it off of the Ventoy thumb drive.
Yeah, so it may not be able to install that way. Maybe I need to do Balena Etcher and write it as a full... And try it that way.
Yeah.
So...
And I've had to do that on some stuff before, too.
Yeah.
But usually it crashes before then.
Well, I don't know about that. I haven't had one that quite did that, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, if you go, I can't find it.
It either starts or it doesn't start. I mean, almost immediately, it'll just like, so it doesn't work.
The ones that I usually have is like, it goes to the grub rescue. It's like, can't find.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Oh, okay, well, that one.
So, at least it saves you time.
You don't get halfway through it and you're like, oh, I can't continue. It's like, oh.
Right.
God, you remember when you used to have 4 or 5 CDs to install one game?
True.
you go through, you put it in there.
Well, Microsoft Windows or Microsoft Office or any of that stuff, it was forever. And I mean, and I was used to that, but these were like CDs, if you will, or DVDs.
Yeah.
And, before that, you had the little 3.5 floppies and
like 30
5 1/4. Yeah, it wouldn't be 30, but I mean, you would buy a tray.
Yeah. And
on one side, you might have the one program. On the other side, you have your other program. And that's it. And you set that up there, and you locked it so no one messed with it, And, but yeah, that took up most of everything.
It was actually real fun. And I got to tease my dad a little bit about it, but I would love to see this too. My dad is from the generation of punch cards.
No, that was actually just before me. I mean, yes.
You had a punch card toolbox.
Yeah, well, that was, which was basically a military ammo crate. I mean, they use the same thing. But the punch cards were just before me. I mean, yes, I did get to work on some of the mainframes and stuff. But by then, we all had our terminals and everything. It might have been a tape, if you will. I started off in the VIC-20 with the tape, the Commodore stuff, or, the Trash 80s and all that other stuff they used to call it stuff. But, so mostly it was, on tape at that time.
Right.
So we did have some storage, and it wasn't long before I was pulling everything off of a floppy disk, and then you flipped it over and used the other side of the floppy disk and stuff.
Right.
We did have hard drives, and like I said, Holly, your mom, one of her professors got one that had a 20 megabyte hard drive. Whoa! That was big time. I mean, you didn't have to you stored everything, your word star I think we had back then, and some type of Excel-like, spreadsheet-like thing, and it all saved right there. Oh, it was awesome. Sometimes you do a backup because you didn't know if it was going to crash or not because we weren't used to that,
Right.
You had your backup on your floppy and your backup on your floppy, especially if you were working on any term papers or finishing up your chemistry lab stuff or anything like that, because we used to have to type that. We weren't allowed to have handwriting. And they checked for grammar as well as everything else. So
it's not like you've ever, wrote a term paper and it 10 pages.
I do not know if I
gone.
ever had that happen exactly. I know we
have.
were working on an HP back then. That was before. That was when HP had their own language. It wasn't a clone.
Okay.
All right, and I don't know if they were called 8080s or something like that, maybe. But we had a plotter. And the plotter were like these little markers, that would plot across, lines and curves and things like that. So what you would do is you do the programming on that. And like if I wanted to draw something, I would kind of graph it out. Mm-hmm. And then it was coordinates for the most part. So yes, you could put in a function to make a circle, you got to use your trigonometry and things,
Yep.
But you tell it to go grab this marker and go grab that marker, and it'd go back and forth and and the paper would slide back and forth. So it was, I remember, I don't know how many lines, you get into it and you can have lines and lines of code, as they call it now, I guess, and I remember doing that and I was going back through and I had it all, but things were a little bit messed up. So I had to debug it. And I was probably sitting in my second hour of debugging, if you will. And, the rule was save early, save often.
Yes.
Okay. Apparently I forgot about that and the power went out. No. So I don't know if it was like, hey, you have to rewrite the code. It was worse than that. You had to go back and debug everything because you're back to drawing this stuff that wasn't. But we had to draw our own pictures, which would have been like, chemical compounds, things like that to take off, because, my professor and the grad students would go and present this stuff at these chemistry places or American Chemical Society, and they needed that. What changed that all for us was the Mac. So you had the little Mac that's set up on your desktop there, and you can do the mouse stuff, and you can make the dots work, and you can use micro dots and smooth out the lines and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden we had Paint, if you will.
Yeah.
Whatever version of that was, and that's how we started doing the plot. So, and I adapted to that really easily because, I have a little bit of. I'm not saying I'm an artist, but I have an eye for that, and I can draw stuff. So with the mouse,
Hold on, let me go grab a couple of your paintings.
No, nothing like that. But what I'm saying is, it moved from thinking of it in coordinates to moving into, I just draw this and make this curve and that thing. So the graphical part became a lot easier. And I can't believe that we were actually doing that on a screen that was about that big, because those things weren't that big, those screens on them. But that was the beginning there. And then I'd go over to the lab and I had
at Eastern New Mexico University.
I had a clone. That's what I was using at home. I bought that off of, I don't know, one of those pay-as-you-go type things, whatever it was. And so I was doing it on the floppies. But see, I didn't have a printer, so I'd go over to the lab. And they had one DOS printer over there. They had these other Macs all over the place, and all these Macs were being used for Chopper Command or something like that. They're all playing the game. I am not kidding you. Everybody's playing games on those, and I need to get work done. And you had a whole nother lab of those Apple II computers and things like that. You had another lab of that. They had one PC out of this whole thing there, and that's why I had to wait for it to use so I can just print off my reports and stuff on a dot matrix. So no, not necessarily punch cards, but not long after the punch cards.
I still would have loved to have seen some of the actual punch cards that my dad had stored, but had to get rid of.
I'm just glad I didn't have to do that stuff because, like I said, they had the mainframe that they're working on, and So what they started finding out is they were passing this game around, which was like a Star Trek game, I believe. Mm-hmm. And, we're not talking about a graphical type beautiful thing. It was just, a simple game. But it's like 75% of the server space was taken up by the same game because everybody kept loading the same game. So somehow they made it where they load up that game and everybody can tap into it then so they could see that storage space. Very smart. But that all happened like about 2 or 3 years before I got over to Eastern. So, but there were still stories about it.
That's still pretty cool. So, my story aside and your history aside, what have you been doing with IT recently?
All right. So when you're working with this Linux, computers, IT, open source, networking, anything like that, sometimes timing is everything.
I don't know. It could be timing is everything even outside of that.
Yeah. So my 2 main areas I always have problems with in Linux are printers and network cards, right? Lately I've been on a roll, man. The printers have been going so well that, when I do these distro hopping and try new stuff and I have 3 different printers roughly that I work with and there's different ways of having to load those. And I begin them all to work. And I told you I was getting so cocky about it that I turned around and I would uninstall it just so I could reinstall it and get it done, So every once in a while I like to go back and check up on some of these other stuff that we've loaded in the past.
Like ones that you've had issues with it in the
Well,
past,
not necessarily issues, but just ones that I have been using in a while, but mainly the main ones. So what I consider like the main ones, and this is not saying that these other ones are. I'm just talking about the ones that have the main amount of support and downloads and stuff like that. So, it's going to be things like, Fedora.
Ubuntu,
yeah. OpenSUSE or OpenSUSE. Those are all these ones that are going Arch,
Yeah.
They're all going to have that type of stuff. So I went back and grabbed OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. And put it on my desktop. So I loaded that, everything like that. I went out to my printer. They have YAST. We're going to be talking about YAST here in a little bit. But it has a YAST printer manager, and I tried a test page. It only printed part of it. The color wheel looked great. So the color wheel, it looked awesome. The print didn't look so awesome. And I'm like, what's weird, So then I tried it a different way and it printed another test page. That test page, what printer wheel it had worked fine too. The color wheel looked fine. Mm-hmm. The text was not there at all. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I'm thinking this is an ink problem. And I happen to have another cartridge of ink, loaded it in there. Nope, same problem.
Sorry, I already know the story, so it makes me laugh.
So then, I'm thinking, okay, it's got to be a distro problem thing or whatever. So I'm going through and I'm trying every way I can to get it loaded and reloaded and printed, 14 pages of the test printer that none of them are working in the test print. Even flip the pages over to say paper at least. I'm not really saving ink and print on their side and stuff. And then I was like, okay, I'm just giving up for the night. So I went to bed, woke up the next day, and I went ahead and updated Fedora then. Mm-hmm. So I did OpenSUSE, now I was doing Fedora. Went to set up the printer on that, and it printed the same way. And then I'm going to be thinking, oh no. So I loaded up my regular workhorses, Arch, NixOS, and these other ones. Yeah, sure enough. They're all messed up. One of them. It is the printer again. This is the printer that's actually a problem. So it turned out that my black cartridge, and keep in mind I changed it out twice. I had 2 extra black cartridges to work with. But it had a clog in it. So I went through and removed that clog. So, I had to put like
alcohols.
Yeah, I actually use, and I'm not saying to use this. I'm not sure what the best way it is. But what I did is I put like paper towels underneath the print heads. And I cut one of the syringes that I have and loaded it up with alcohol and was shooting it through there until I got it clean. And it took a while to re-clean the ports afterwards. So you keep maintaining the ports and it worked. And then it worked great, OpenSUSE, Fedora, NixOS, Arch, CashieOS, Bros, all that stuff worked out great. But, I could have got that done 3 hours earlier if I'd known. If the timing was different. Because then I would have known, if it would have started messing up with the new OS immediately, then I might be able to to narrow that down, but the timing was it worked out fine. And in between the one and the other, which was just hours, it messed up. So timing is everything. So no. All right. So another thing I've been working on is trying out the QOwnNotes. Now, I was talking about Ghostwriter. I was using Ghostwriter. QOwnNotes is something I heard about on one of the podcasts, and it actually allows me to open up these markdown notes that we have for our Linux that we're using right now. Right. It allows me to use their markdown notes for Nextcloud.
Right.
And it actually plugs into Nextcloud Notes directly. It can do that, but it does the markdown. It's working really great. So try out the QOwnNotes. That's QOWN, and again, OTES. QOwnNotes. It does the markdown. You see everything that way. You can do a minimum install. You can do a maximum install where you can have all kinds of stuff around it. It looks really good. I'm going to try it out a little bit more here in a little bit. In these next couple of weeks, I'm going to try a little bit more. Well, the other thing I did in this open source or Linux is I've been test driving Ark Linux. So have you ever heard of Ark Linux?
No, I have not.
Okay. So let me show you how I've been test driving Ark Linux. Oh, what are you trying to look at? No. All right, let's see.
You got a PDA? Personal something assistant? Come here. I gotta play with this.
So this is a R36S. It's an R36S. It's actually a retro game emulation. It runs on Ark Linux. It has just 2 chips in there. I'm using a 36 gigabyte and a 64 gigabyte. A 32 gigabyte and a 64 gigabyte. Sorry. I'm using a 32 gigabyte and a 64 gigabyte. And it has so many different systems in it that emulates.
But no, those things are pretty cool. I have seen a few of them. I really want to actually get one just to play around with. I saw one that was a little bit wide. Wasn't like the game,
so you had, instead of, it was horizontal instead of vertical?
Yes.
Yeah. And I think most of them have the same system in them. This one is nice because it has it has all the video games from when I was growing up. I'm talking about, when you go into the arcades, go into the bowling alleys. It has all those. It has 1,926. Pac-Man, Burger Time, Asteroids, Defender. I mean, all the way Gauntlet, Galaga, Galaxian. It has them all. It is crazy. And so you go on down there, and it has the NEC, which I think is actually the early version of the Super Nintendo, or maybe the Japanese version or a foreign version of the Super Nintendo. And then it has the disc system, which I think is the foreign market for the NEC. But then it has the NEC, okay? Or NES. Right. So it has the NES, so it has 500 games in it. It has 1,332 games out of your Super Nintendo. It has Nintendo 64, which doesn't work as well. There's a few of them that work on there. It has...
So do you have Pokemon Puzzle League?
It does.
Yes.
It does.
So, something fun, just because we like to... this is kind of just our moment to chat. Nintendo 64 is one of the ones that Dad and I and my brother used to play frequently together. They had a game that was similar to Dr. Mario.
Right. And it has Dr. Mario, too.
Yeah.
3 different versions of Dr. Mario.
Of course. Called Pokemon Puzzle League. And my dad honestly started to prefer playing against the computer at some point.
Yeah, because it was easier than playing against Jamie. I would rather play against the computer on level 10, than against Jamie, because for some reason, Jamie was better than the computer. Of course, you guys know Jamie. He's kind of that way. It also has Game Boy. It has Game Boy Color. Now, the Game Boy, the black and gray, whatever you want to call it.
I used to have one. You bought me one for
Game Boy Advance.
When you got my tonsils removed.
It has the Nintendo DS, which is kind of weird because that's 2 screens, but you can click on the back to switch between the screens, or show them both. It has Sega Mega Drive. It has the Sega Dreamcast. Again, the Dreamcast is kind of one of those things that, it might be too many...
so now, are we being endorsed by these people?
No. It's got the Sega Game Gear. It has the SNK Neo Geo. It has the Sony PlayStation on here. It has Sony PSP. The PSP is a pretty strong and powerful thing too. So
yeah.
Anyway, said all that. It has a great screen. It works really well. You can get this in some of the markets, like I want to say you can get it as low as $40.
Yeah.
So if you get it on Amazon, it's going to be more like $80,
right?
Maybe $70 or $80. But so as far as for the price, it works great.
Yeah.
So back to Dr. Mario. That was Mom's favorite thing. And once I showed it to her and showed her Dr. Mario, it's like, yeah, okay. So now I'm going to get me a different one because. So I'm test driving Arch Linux. No.
So I have to ask, if you do get another one, you need to tell me if you guys can.
Now, see, I don't know if you could network or link them together or not. Now, there are some more expensive ones out there that allow you to do some of the networking as far as you have a network, wireless network, so like that.
Right, Bluetooth or using wireless LAN or something like that.
This one I updated by tethering it to my phone and got it updated. I changed out the cards because the SD cards are probably...
Isn't it amazing what you can do on your phone now?
Oh, but it's all, this whole thing's fun. I mean, it's worth the $40, no doubt, hands down, okay? I mean, I had the screen protector on it for a little bit, but it kind of cracked, like, how those screen protectors do that with the glass. And honestly, for $40, just take the chips, move them over to the new one you buy. I mean, because by the time you start buying the glass protectors and stuff, it wouldn't take you long to get to that $40 if you get it.
Right.
But I don't know. You should try it out. I mean, it's really fun, especially the older people out there that like to go back to. I am not kidding. It has every game that you might have played and then some inside the arcade game, and just about every NES game and Nintendo Entertainment System, and about every one of the Super Nintendos and stuff. And it's worth it to have that. So anyway, that's been fun. And when I'm being allowed to play it, All right, so we have a suggestion from one of our viewers.
Yeah.
I think he's probably seen just about everyone we've done so far.
Every one of our episodes. He's posted a comment on almost every one of our videos. Yeah. Actually, I think every one of our videos for that matter.
Kakashi Hatake, if I said that wrong, I am sorry. Hatake?
Yes.
All right. And we were talking about a color picker, and I thought that's pretty cool because you can pick the colors by moving the mouse across on the screen. And I think I had G Picker.
Right.
Was the one that we're looking at. And he said another color picker is K Color Chooser from KDE. So I uploaded that briefly and just looked at it real quick. And I think it's also one of the ones that, just like mine, that you cannot do it on Wayland right now. You can only do it on X11. But it works really well. So we'll try to test drive that this next couple of weeks or whatever and get back to you on that next time and see what we think about it, because I'm sure it's going to be great. That's one of the great things about Linux is you can look at one or another or another or another, so you're not just stuck with Microsoft this or, Mac this or whatever. You actually have some choices and selections. So if you don't like the way this one works, you can test drive another one.
Right. And sometimes it's just a fork off of the original, but it has a slight change that might be something you enjoy a little bit more. Maybe they updated the graphics a little bit, like the GUI, the windowing systems, or to adding a new feature that what the other one didn't have, So those are the really fun things about open source overall. So
right, which gives us to this next thing that we're talking about, which is talking about your package managers, because if you can master the package manager,
right,
there's no limit.
No, there isn't.
There's no limit, and you don't have to be a programmer to do that. You can go and look at different ones that other people have put together, other teams have put together. So your package managers are, how I guess people would call them apps nowadays,
Applications.
We called it programs back in the day. So
I still call them programs.
And I want to say it was somewhere around, Windows 8 or somewhere along there. That's when you start getting these little apps,
Right.
Now, Macs might have been calling them apps before that. I do not know. I can't remember. But apps were more like for your phones, I thought, back in the day.
Yeah.
But they got that idea. But applications, okay, so you have to have an application or package manager. So
you can think of a package manager if you guys have your iPhone or iPad as the iStore. Or you could even think about it if you have an Android as the Play Store.
Or Google Play Store.
Or Google Play Store, yeah.
Said the G word there, yeah.
Oh, no. Or the Chrome Web Store,
or
any
the
of
Apple
those.
Store.
Yeah. So these are, package managers are very similar, okay? Usually, you don't have to pay for them, though.
Yeah. I mean, we suggest that you do. If you get one that you like and you're using it a lot,
Support them.
Support them. So, keep that project going because the project will make that application even better. So if there's people working at that, well, buy them a cup of coffee, as they said.
Yes.
Please support that if you can.
And a cup of coffee, believe it or not, goes a long way.
It
It really
It
can.
So
Different.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Usually these are broken into two categories, but they usually function off the one of the major ones. They have your terminal or command line version, and then you have a graphical version. Now, the graphical one is just making it easier to work with, showing you how it's going to look, what it's about, usually providing you some reviews that might be there, or user rating, or if this is an official one of that particular operating system that you're using. And it just in the back end runs the terminal commands for you to install it. But, you can still...
And if they happen to have ratings on there, just be sure to check how many ratings there were. There might only be 2, so...
Sometimes that's all there is. I don't see it too frequently. If you need more reviews, look online.
Right.
There's plenty of people out there.
Right. So, package manager is very important to Linux, and knowing how to use multiple package managers can prove to be a life-saving for the power user or even becoming a power user, since downloading or installing software from repositories, plus updating, plus handling the dependencies and uninstalling the software is very vital and a critical part of your Linux life. So get used to using them. It goes through a whole gambit. Like he was talking about, if you're doing the terminal stuff, that may be a higher level, but it also has the graphical interface, very graphical interface. What I mean, hey, there's a picture of that app. Yes, they're there. So that'd be more like your Discover, if you will. And we'll talk about all that here in a second. But we're going to have to start from the beginning, which I think, one of the earliest ones is going to have to be like Debian.
Right.
So Debian...
used the package.
Yeah, they called it a DPKG or something like that.
Right.
And those were the packages had a .deb what do you call it? Like what's the
file
word?
extension?
Yeah, okay. The Debian had a .deb file extension. Did I say that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, the .deb is considered the file extension. The files. It tells the computer what program do you want to use to open this file.
Correct.
So whenever you're talking about like Word, it's going to be docx now for Windows 2007, or sorry, Office 2007 and up. It was docx. So you're talking about
exe, that is
Office 98 to 2003. Yeah. It was the doc, just DOC.
Yeah. Anyway, so, but that, it was the beginning. So they started putting all these package managers together. So any of the forks or even Debian uses APT. So what is APT?
So APT is just it's aptitude. Is what it stands for, or short for anyway. And it's just another terminal-based package managing system, where it does go out to the repositories. It looks for the dependencies for you for the particular particular program that you're installing or application. It'll glean it all together it'll actually go, it's like, all right, well, this file or this program needs this program. Okay, and that program needs that other file. And then that file needs this file in order to run.
Instead of rewriting the code fully,
right,
it can borrow from another program.
Correct.
That's called a dependency. And it knows to go and grab each one of these dependencies. And that's why sometimes when you go to uninstall something, it says, hey, this might break a dependency.
Yes.
No, you don't want to do that. So when your other programs will quit working.
Read those warnings. They do tend to come up. It's like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Make sure you're double checking. And that's also one of those things whenever you're upgrading. Right. Sometimes if you go too far, by that I mean it's like, okay, so this one's so new that it doesn't support as a dependency this other program. Okay, right. So can happen that way too. So it's just going and grabbing all those dependencies. It'll present it to you and say, hey, this is going to take this much download space. This is how much it's going to take to install the storage space. And then gives you a choice. Do you want to continue? Yes or no?
Right. So any of the forks from that. So like Ubuntu may fork off into some of these other stuff. Like the Linux that we're actually test driving right now, it is a fork of Debian, if you will. And usually all of them are going to have the APT as their terminal package manager.
Right.
Now, they're going to have a graphical package manager, which will probably use APT as well, but they may use a couple other repositories as well.
And there's a couple of those that you'll see frequently.
We'll see that here in a little bit.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'm stealing his thunder. I'm sorry.
No. We can get to that. I'm just trying to get all these other ones out of the way first. So for Fedora, it's DNF. So DNF, we're going to have to talk about Red Hat first, because Red Hat was the original package manager. It was called RPM. You know, So RPM was the original stuff for that. And actually, there's more than just the Red Hat or Fedora type forks that use RPMs.
Right.
For that matter, there's more than just the Ubuntu stuff that uses the .deb stuff too.
True.
So sometimes you'll go out to find a program and it'll say, .rpm for all these different Linuxes and the .deb for all these different Linuxes and stuff. So it just depends what they did. So Red Hat put this stuff together. Red Hat was one of those earlier Linuxes, one of the first ones, and you could purchase it. And I know we've had that at one time or another. It just wasn't one that stuck to me. But it's like the underlying system that's going to start working the package management tools. Then they had Yum, which was Yellow Dog Updater Modified. I love the naming. I really do. So, an open source and popular command line package manager that works as an interface for the users of RPM. The Red Hat. That'd be great. They could call themselves Red Hot. Wouldn't that be cool? Okay, the Red Hat package manager.
Like there's some band out there called that.
All right, so that brings us up to the DNF. So the only reason I said all that was to tell you that this is now called Dandified Yum. This is Dandified, that's where you're getting your DNF. Where does DNF come from? Dandified. Because it's a Dandified Yum. Anyway, it's also a package manager for the RPM-based distributions. They introduced it in Fedora 18 and the next generation, the version of Yum, if you will. So if you're on Fedora whatever now, you're using DNF.
Or Dandified Yum.
Which brings us up to Arch, or the Arch Force, which is Pac-Man.
Pac-Man. And no, we're not talking about the little yellow guy that eats a lot of the dots and gets chased by.
I got that right here, too. It's on here.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Fun fact. Did you know that only one of the ghosts chases Pac-Man? On all the rest of them just are random?
No, I didn't know that.
You didn't?
No.
That's actually the true statement. Only one of the ghosts actually chases Pac-Man. All the rest of them just take a random horse.
You must be playing a different Pac-Man than I do. All my ghosts are chasing after me.
I don't know what you're talking about. The program doesn't say that.
Back in my day, Pac-Man was hard. We had to go across the dots both ways uphill, 6 miles in the cold. That's right.
I think the fact that they go under random order actually make it more difficult.
Maybe, because you bring it back in and run. All right. Anyway,
So
Pac-Man
stands pretty much Package Manager. It's the terminal-based version for Arch Linux derivatives. And it's doing very similar things to to Aptitude and DNF and Yum.
Yeah.
It'll go out there, find the dependencies, and do everything for you. They also have an ability to use what they call the R repository.
AUR.
The AUR. And what this is a community-based repository that goes out, and so these people maintain their own versions of the programs, their own ways, and it will download the instructions, compile everything, or build it if necessary, before actually installing it into your system, which is really pretty fun.
That's usually a command line too. If you're using
Yes.
if you're using a vanilla Arch like I do, that's going to be your yay. So So you got to load yay off of GitHub. If you don't understand what I'm saying, that's fine.
This is a little bit
but the
higher
yay is
level.
going to let you do the AUR, and you can go out to the AUR. See if you can't find it in your Pac-Man, which is Package Manager on the Arch. It's not there. You can go to the AUR, and usually you'll find it there. So between the AUR and the Pac-Man, you can usually get just about anything you'd want.
right.
Now, the AUR is going to be sometimes a bleeding edge type thing, so there's
Very true.
possibility it's not all tested out, and it may not be all tested out for your system. But I do remember when I was using a display manager that we were on the Garuda, and Garuda, since it was an Arch-based one back then, was about one of the only ones I can use to outside of Windows, if you will, that would use that display manager, display link, I think is what it was back then,
Right.
to be able to do my docking.
Right.
So that worked out to my advantage just because it had that
The
AUR
capability.
type stuff. So
Yeah.
the next one you have is Zipper. I love that. Zipper.
ZYPPER.
Yeah,
Zipper.
ZYPPER. And that's OpenSUSE. And Zipper and Yast are the package managers for SUSE Linux, which works on top of RPM, which we were talking about earlier. That's
Right.
Red Hat package manager. It is a command line package manager on OpenSUSE Linux, and it makes the use of library zip or libzip, I guess, or libzip library. Its common functionalities include repository access, package installation, resolution of all these dependencies that we were talking about earlier, and much more than that. So then they have their YAST, which is their graphical
Right.
interface, if you will.
In the Arch is POMOC.
POMOC.
Yeah. They also have another one that's more similar to Synaptic, which is called Octopi.
Octopi. Yeah.
Synaptic and Octopi, they differ from your YAST or others, we'll call it software centers, by providing you package names, and you're only choosing the package names that you want.
Correct. And that could be part of the package name, too.
Correct.
So I guess I shouldn't say it quite that way. So you
Part
may
of
be
your
used to
full
seeing
software.
this icon with this thing underneath it.
Right.
And it might actually have a dash something else.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind. But yeah, Yast is going to be similar to that because it doesn't actually have the icons to it and everything. But the cool thing about those Synaptic and Octopi is when you find what you need, which they seem to have a lot bigger resource or repositories than the graphical ones do, it's going to give you all the dependencies. And it's going to say, okay, are you going to want to install all these dependencies? So you can see the dependencies there.
Right.
And you know, for me, it was more like a learning thing at that point. Then I realized, oh, we got other things we got to load for this tour. I get this now. Now I'm understanding that. So Zipper, and by the way, YAST stands for Yet Another Setup Tool.
Don't you love how some of these are named?
Well, and that's what it was called back when I was using Linux 9.0 and 9.3. I'm not Linux, OpenSUSE. Or not, actually, it wasn't even OpenSUSE back then. So when I was using SUSE 9.0 through 9.3, that was called YAST back then. It was just, they said, and I thought they were teasing when they said yet another setup tool. Really, what does it mean?
Do you recall Yumi or Yummy?
Yes.
So, this is a multi-boot thing, much like Ventoy or some other things for Windows. And it's called Your USB Multi-Boot Installer.
Yeah. So,
I love how some of these acronyms come out to something
some of the
funny.
names are named after someone's, like, you know, Debian was named after the guy's name and his girlfriend, you know, Debbie. And so that's the two were put together as Debian. Anyway, but some of them come through just the acronyms. Some of them are just, let's just think of a weird name to name them. So, I guess that's kind of the beauty and maybe some of the problems with people getting into Linux and not understanding it fully is, you do have some freedom in all this naming. So that does make it a little more difficult. Now, we said all of these. Now, these were some of the major ones. There's other ones. We had Void, and that had a different package manager for Void. They had their own. So, but there's a lot of similarities between it. So, like, if I want to load something in the terminal, or the terminal emulators, they call it, these terminal, I'm going to be saying sudo, sudo, which is
super user.
Now, when you put that in there, you'll be able to do things, that you may not want to. But for the most part, sudo is going to keep you a little bit closer at bay, if you will. But
yeah, don't go into your super.
Don't use your SU.
SU is your actual super user. Yeah. Sudo is, I guess you could say,
temporarily for doing this.
Yeah,
these next few things. All right, but anyway, so if we're going to do it inside of Fedora, it's going to be sudo dnf install. Let's say the package we want to install is NeoFetch.
Right.
Now, NeoFetch is one of the ones that makes this kind of cool looking design in ASCII code, and then you have all your little data information on the side. This much RAM's being used, this stuff, and all the side. It's pretty cool. So if you get in there, that should be the first program you load is NeoFetch because that's what everybody's going to type in NeoFetch and get this cool icon. Now, so sudo dnf install NeoFetch. Well, for your
Pac-Man.
No, well, yeah. So no, let's go to that one last.
Okay, fine.
So if you go to Ubuntu, it sounds real similar, right? Except it's sudo apt install NeoFetch. With that said, OpenSUSE is sudo zipper install NeoFetch.
Right.
Now, Arch is a little bit different. It has sudo pacman, and instead of saying install, they do the -s.
And it has to be a capital
S. NeoFetch.
Now, you can also, they call them command line arguments. Okay, usually whenever you're doing with just a single character or even a brief set of characters, such as S in this case, would be a command line argument that tells Pac-Man how it wants you to, or how you want it to work with this next package or whatever you're doing.
DNF or stuff.
So yeah, in apt you can do, instead of install, you can do remove. So install and remove are your keywords or your command line arguments for it as well.
And then when you go to Arch, the Pac-Man is going to be the -R.
Right.
In this case, capital R. So, but you can also use sudo apt install, and then you can do a -- help. Is that how it is? And that will bring up all the choices that you have to work with as far as, I think that's correct.
All the
it might just be
that you have.
apt install -- help probably would be closer to it.
That will give you the help for the install feature of it. Correct. It won't actually just tell you everything the aptitude or apt will give you.
Correct.
If you want everything that apt does, you'll do sudo apt -- help, and that'll give you all those. And then you can break it down to get further. It's like, all right, I know I now want to install, and I need to know, what else do I need? You can do -- install, -- help after sudo apt install.
I'm going to let him edit this part. I know it's going to be all messed up. He's going to Which one of those did you really mean, Jamie? Was it this one or this one? People are confused.
I said exactly what I meant on each one of these.
Anyway, so with that said, then you get some extra stuff that you can use, which could be like snaps, which is by Canonical, which is the same people that put together
Ubuntu.
Right. So you also have Flatpaks. Okay, FLATPAKS. Each one of those have their web page that shows all their applications, if you will. And you used to only be able to do it through the terminal, but now you can load those up into your repositories on different things like probably GNOME applicator, GNOME software. Yeah, that's what I meant to say. Discover, some of these other ones will actually allow you to do that as well. Synaptic. Anyway, it does allow you to have that as some of the repositories, but before it used to be you just did command line.
Yeah.
And you would install snaps, and then you just have to say snap this or Flatpaks. And you can go out to Flatpak's website would be FlatHub, and FlatHub has all the stuff in there. So some of it's kind of almost a little bit of a version of the AUR for you, if you will, when you're not using Arch. So if I'm in Arch, I'm going to be using the Pac-Man and the AUR. If I'm in like Fedora or maybe Ubuntu or something like that, I'm going to be using their Discover or probably Terminal. I'll be using the APT. But I'm also going to have Flatpak there ready to jump whenever I need it,
Absolutely.
So I can get everything I needed. There's going to be a couple programs that I use that may not be in the repository for native, like, for each one of those systems. So, but like we said earlier, there are the graphical friendly ones like your Discover, and even in OpenSUSE, it used to not be there. Now they have Discover there too. So I got Discover or Yast or Terminal. I got choices. And
one of the wonderful things about Linux, isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Now, it's almost not exactly limited to
package management.
Well, just to Linux. So on your Macs, you can use Homebrew, which actually is a Linux-based package manager, and you can use that to load stuff onto Mac that you would normally not be able to get.
Right.
So I've done that with, that 2015 Mac book.
But I'm pretty certain that Apple will not support you in that.
Oh, no, they want it all.
So if you have something that breaks because of Homebrew, I apologize for you.
No, but our main focus is giving you out some of the information of the best package managers out there. Not all of them, and not how to use them completely. You can use them to discover more.
Absolutely.
It makes you a more powerful Linux user and it helps you use your computer into areas that you never thought was possible. I mean, you are not limited like you are with Windows. I'm just going to use this Microsoft product or this. So it opens up so many things for you.
Did you know, and I did not know this until I bought my daughter a new laptop for her birthday.
She got a new one.
Yeah.
What kind is it?
I can't even remember at
a
the
Lenovo
moment.
something.
Lenovo,
right?
Yeah. Anyway, it has the AMD Ryzen in it.
Ooh, yeah.
That's the CPU or central processing unit, the brain of the computer. Anyway, it's preloaded with Windows 11, which is great. Cool. I'm all right with that. I can make things work. I'd much rather install Linux, but some of the things that she wants to do, I can't get running in Linux right this moment. Because of
Minecraft will work in Linux.
That's not it. It's actually Roblox. Roblox, they don't want to say that they stop support for Linux.
Oh, okay.
But some of the stuff that they have implemented, like anti-hacking or something like that, Linux can't get beyond. So if you try to load it in Wine, it'll install. You load it up, it won't go.
Uh-oh.
So I've gone on their forum and said, "Oh, we didn't drop support. We're just trying to do something XYZ reason." Anyway, Windows 11, at least when pre-installed, comes up and says that you're automatically in a safe mode. And what this means is that you're only allowed to install things from the Windows Store.
Right.
So, and that's great because that actually is safer. They've already tested everything. They made sure that the code is fine.
Right.
And that's great, and if that's all that you need, fantastic, But if you need something outside like Roblox or some other EXE like LibreOffice, for instance.
I just ran into that stuff recently on Windows.
You had to go.
Yeah.
You have to go in and disable the safe mode in order to install third-party packages. It's like, well, I mean,
which isn't new. I think we had to do that with some of their stuff we used in the past. Maybe some of the Windows stuff. I just can't remember. I want to say Android. I think we had to do that for. There's some other stuff that we used. I know we had to go out and check or uncheck.
Yeah, of course. So anyway, that's just how it is. We're talking about limitations, but you can still be free and choiceful here.
So we're checking the time now, the date, to see how long before is the countdown to put Linux on our machine.
Eventually. Fun fact. My daughter's first computer was a Linux-based computer.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
As it should be.
Anyway, speaking of Linux, we're distro hopping.
We're distro hopping.
What?
And we came up with this great idea that we're going to put all the names, or at least about a dozen or so, onto a name wheel and just spin it at random. That way we're not picking it. We're not biased in any way.
Right.
So we except for the fact which ones we actually put on the wheel. So we put a bunch on a wheel. We spun it. Let's go ahead and see what it gives us. All right, here we go. All right, spinning. All right, here we go. What's it going to land on? Arco, Nabara, Voyager.
Voyager OS.
Voyager OS. So we are going to be distro hopping over to Voyager OS. So we went from Bros, hey bro, over to Voyager. Of course,
we're going on a voyage.
Both of those are Ubuntu based, I guess.
Yes,
or
in this case.
So Debian based. So we have to use that sudo apt a little bit more often.
Very true.
Anyway, that should be fun though. I mean, it's I want to say it's from France. And so there's going to be some of that going on, a little bit of this different language and looking at that.
Much like Bro OS?
Yeah, but most of that stuff, like I said, it gives it to you, the information you need. Maybe we will have a little bit more time to get updates and download stuff in the first place. Installation. Honestly, the longest installation time I've had for anything is actually OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. For some reason, it takes a while. Is it from Germany or something?
I do not know. I know the longest one that I had was way back when with Deepin.
Deepin does do that.
Yeah, because it was.
So when you do an update,
China,
you had to wait. And Deepin's got such a beautiful. It is awesome. Anyway. We're going to be doing Voyager, and actually we have been doing Voyager. So that spinning you were looking at, we did a couple of weeks ago. So we already been driving this for a couple of weeks, and we've got a couple more weeks more than we're going to be driving. So, and I'm going to be also driving my Ark Linux, if my wife lets me.
So, in the spirit of the solar eclipse today, we've got a verse for y'all. It's coming from 1 Corinthians 15, verses 40 through 41, right?
Right.
So, there are also bodies in the heavens and bodies on the earth. The glory of the heavenly bodies is different from the glory of the earthly bodies. The sun has one kind of glory, while the moon and stars have another kind. And even the stars differ from each other in their own glory as well.
So, God created everything. And in doing so, it has this beauty to it.
Absolutely.
He created you and me, and we have this certain beauty to ourselves. Each one's individual, hand created, if you will. But as a creator, there's this beauty of nature, beauty of the stars and everything. So what I want you guys to think about in here is there are so many beautiful things that God created. Put down that tablet. Put down that phone, that computer, that S36R emulator once in a while and step outside to see God's incredible creation.
Absolutely.
Like the solar eclipse. It's some beautiful stuff. Take someone with you and experience that beauty together.
So in our closing, love God, love your neighbor, keep your mind sharp, and also your computer with Linux and open source.
All right. Take care,
Love you
guys.
guys.
We'll talk to you later.